Welcome to Friends and Neighbors. I'm Sherry.
And I'm Sandra now. I always...
And Sandra's over here going...
Distracted.
Oh my gosh, welcome to Friends and Neighbors. We're not always crazy here, but it helps a little, doesn't it?
It's been a little while since we've been together, so we're trying. And look, we didn't even plan this.
No.
Look at this.
And
you're going
and
to...
our guest is the same way.
Yes.
I can't believe it. And you know what? We got Paula Anderson Schaefer here as our guest, and her father, Paul Anderson, was the strongest man at one time in the world, right, Paula?
Right.
And I had the privilege of seeing him in high school. And you know what? You forget a lot of stuff, but I've never forgotten him.
I love it.
Picking all those kids up on a bar.
The mightiest minister. I love it.
Yeah, he was awesome. But now, Paula, you're here to talk about the Paul Anderson Youth Home, right?
That's right.
Now, tell us a little bit about that, but not to dwell on the bicycle ride, but there will be a 300-mile bicycle ride to honor your father, right? Tell a little bit about that, and then tell us something about the home.
We have a bicycle ride every year annually that supports the Paul Anderson Youth Home, and that bicycle ride is normally in July, and it's one of our fundraisers. It's our biggest fundraiser, and that was started going back to the history of the home when my mom and dad, my mom's name's Glenda, and they married in '59, and my father had a real passion for wanting to help young people who he had gone to speak at a prison. He had come home, he had won the Olympics, he was an Olympic gold medalist. He came home from the Olympics and was speaking, and he went to a prison named Alto, and it was adults, and there were young people in with the adults, and he just right then and there he had a heart for that those young people didn't need to be in the adult prison. And so he wanted to start a youth home, and my mom wanted to start it right there with him, and so they did some fundraising, and the first thing they did was have a bike ride. My dad rode a bike to Father Flanagan's in Omaha, Nebraska from Vidalia, Georgia. It was about 1,300 miles. He didn't have a special bike, just had a regular bike. He wore flip-flops, and my mom followed him in this little white van that said Paul Anderson's World's Strongest Man on the side, and she was like 19 years old. And she was like, oh.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah. And so that was really the start. And when they got home from their bicycle trip, they started the home in Vidalia, and that was in '61.
1961, and it's still going strong.
Yes, Lord's blessing.
Now, I know your father lived by Christian principles.
Yes, he did.
I remember that too at high school. I remember him talking about God then, and we could back then, you know. But tell me about the school. How do you teach spiritual principles at the school?
We are a Christ-centered school. It's a fully accredited, SACS accredited school, but we start each day with prayer. We end each day with prayer. The boys memorize scripture, have Bible study. They're very inundated in the Word of God because we really know that's the key to them having success in the future and remaining successful.
So it's the ages of 16 through 21, right?
That's right.
So say a young man wanted to come to Paul Anderson's Youth Home. How would he get accepted? What does he have to do to go there?
His parents, or some of our boys come through the courts. They're court ordered, but a lot of our kids, boys, also come from private placement. So their parents would just contact the Paul Anderson Youth Home, and we would start the ball rolling from there.
So how many can the home have at one time?
A full house, just totally full for us, is 20 at one time.
So now how long does that period of time last for that child?
16 to 18 months.
16 to 18 months.
Right.
Now, are they in the home and not going in and out, or do they stay there?
They stay at home. They stay in the Paul Anderson Youth Home, and we're like a family. They stay Thanksgiving and Christmas, and the staff, celebrates right there with them, and they're our family.
So can their family come and
They come for visits. They come for monthly visits, but they don't, they don't come and stay for any length of time. They'll come for an afternoon once a month. But
so there's no really, then you're saying no really basis on why they're accepted. Why, say like you had 23 to apply, but you only took 20. why, is there a basis that you take
Yes,
these
ma'am.
kids?
I mean, there's a whole admissions process and that they would work through. And a lot of times boys are, like, because we have our own high school, they would gauge if maybe they even, maybe they were ready to graduate and didn't need to come to our youth home, or they had maybe problems that we don't deal with. And so there are a lot of aspects of that would go into who would be accepted.
So instead of being incarcerated, they could come to the Paul Anderson Youth Home.
Yes, ma'am.
And be guided, you're saying.
Right.
So what are some of their problems? Is it drug issues or family issues?
Some of them are behavioral. Some of them are addiction problems, drug addictions and other kinds of addictions. With the internet, there's a lot of other kind of addictions that they're falling prey to, but mainly behavioral issues at yeah.
So they're out of their high school. They couldn't go back to their high school.
No, ma'am.
So the court said you'll either go to jail,
Right.
incarcerated, or you can go to the Paul Anderson
Yes,
Youth
ma'am.
Home. So do any of them, after they go through their program and they grow up, has any of them ever come back and said, hey, I'd like to help?
Yes, ma'am. We have quite a few staff members that are alumnus of the youth home, and we have a lot of, we call them our boys, that come home a lot because it's home to them. And like my mom is their second mother. I mean, they call her and check in with her, and we've had boys since 1961, so they're grandparents now.
Oh my goodness. So it's from one generation to the other. You've been seeing the fruits of how God has blessed you all. So do you guys work, I guess, in tandem with the court systems? And once they graduate, how does that?
It does. Not every boy comes through the courts,
Okay.
But a lot of them do. And a lot of them, like I say, just come from a mom and daddy that know we've reached the end of where we can help my son, and they contact the home. But a boy who would be brought to us from a court system, we of course have to work with their caseworker and make sure that there's a transition program for that boy once he graduates, which we do with boys that come from the courts or come from just mom and dad.
Yeah.
We make sure when they graduate, we don't just say, we love you, it was great, see ya. I mean, we work with the family, we work with the boy and make sure they have something in mind, whether it be the military or college or vocational training, something like that. We make sure that they're ready to hit the ground running, and being idle is not a good thing.
Right,
and, my daddy used to say a tired boy is a good boy. And so they need something to work towards once they graduate, and they all do. Our recidivism rate is one of the best in the state.
Really?
It's just really remarkable. And the number one reason for that is that we teach them about Jesus. There's no doubt about that. But I think us following through with them once they graduate, and them having a purpose and staying in touch with them, and them knowing that they can always come home anytime they want to come home is really part of the formula that's worked for so many years.
So how does it I'm sorry, Sherry. How does the typical day look like for one of the high schoolers?
They start in the morning with a mile run.
Wow. Get this. A tired boy is a happy boy.
Right.
Start with a mile run.
You gotta know when an Olympian has a program, he's gonna put it physical wellness. And then they go to breakfast, and then they'll go to school, and they have Bible study first, and then each boy has a program that's created for them specially. So one boy might go to a class where they're learning how to read better. One might go to an algebra class, and we have a wonderful state-of-the-art facility with a gigantic library and science labs and computer labs, and we just have wonderful
And you're in
teachers.
Savannah, Georgia.
No, we're in Vidalia.
Vidalia,
Onion.
Georgia.
I love it.
The good. Well, Liz, do the boys have someone they can go to, like, to share their hurt, share their their problem, what they need, what they feel like? I mean, do they have that intimate someone, to go to?
Actually, everybody on campus. We're on one campus. I grew up on the campus where we are right to this day. When the home started, there was one house. It's an antebellum, 2-story house where they actually started the home. My mom and dad were in one room, and the boys were all in the other rooms. And then we, started building cottages and dining halls. But we're all on this one campus together. And actually, every single staff member is really there just for them, to talk to them anytime they want to talk and to encourage them and to walk beside them and direct them.
Well, Paula, I hate to say this, we've got to go.
No.
They were too quick. You've got to come back and
I
talk
would love to.
some more
We'll
about
have to
this.
color coordinate again.
I know. I love it. And
Yeah, we can all have on blue. Again.
absolutely. And I
Yeah.
love that you are such a proud daughter. Thank you
know.
for blessing your father's
You have a
name.
wonderful father. I mean, a wonderful father. Now, how could they reach you real quickly if they wanted to find out how to come to the
It's
home?
PAYH.org, paulandersonyouthhome.org.
Okay.
Is our website.
All
That's
right.
the easiest. You'll find everything you need there.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to come back. We're going to take a short break, and we're coming back with another guest.
I'll try not to. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Friends and Neighbors. And I'm just giving this.
sheets. Seats.
I'm giving her a hard time because I'm over here like, hey, hi. And she's like, would you stop? I'm
Yeah,
like
you
the-
made me say the wrong word.
So I would like to apologize to the world. But we are happy to be back on the second half of
Yeah.
the show. And we have a really
I
neat guest with
love
us, Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. We've been trying for a while, haven't
Yeah, we have.
I know, we
we?
have
Then,
been.
then life happens.
Yeah.
Wow.
Every day.
Right.
Well, and what I
Every
would
day.
always like to, I mean, after this whole post-pandemic, post, I don't even know what
Yeah, right.
you know, I always like to start by asking, how are you?
Thank
how
you.
are
Thank
you?
Thank you.
And your
So I appreciate it. Well,
family?
thanks for having me on the show. I want to
Yeah.
say that. And I'm doing well. I mean, I've been, quite frankly, busier than I've actually ever been the last 3 or 4 months, but I'm just focused in on things I needed to get done.
Sure.
And, you know, in every part of my life, you know, physically, socially, I mean, my family, you know, more so. And just tried to make the best out of a tough situation and
Yeah.
encourage other people, which we were kind of talking about before we went on air.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I know not only are you, you're a great communicator, and you have a heart of connecting people, and in an environment that we're in right now that we're really trying to isolate in a healthy way, I would imagine, because that's just kind of odd to just try to rethink how we're doing things for the well-being of people right now.
Well, you know, I always tell people, you know, God created us as relationship beings. You know, we're not
Right.
made to physically, what I call physically distance, or can
Yes.
we give somebody a hug or a handshake. It's just strange.
Right.
Yeah.
I did early on in the COVID stuff, I did a few Facebook Lives, and I was like, how can I add for my magazines, for my clients, extra value? Everybody's home on Zoom and whatever. So I created a second show, in addition to my radio show, called Community Connections.
Yes.
And it quickly became, we'd love to be on, we'd love to be on. And I was like, wanting them to tell their story, because you had people like teachers and people were doing amazing
Yes,
things out
yes.
of their basement or whatever, but that wasn't being covered anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So quickly I realized I was up to, I think we're at like 42 shows now, and that began in early March.
Wow.
And you guys know about shows. So I was,
Yes.
sometimes I'd go to my basement studio and do so many shows. My wife's like, how's it going? I'm like, I am talked out. And she goes, you haven't even seen anybody. I'm like, it feels like
I know, life has definitely been different. And you, along with your shows and your podcasts, you do these magazines around town. This is called Our Town.
Our Town Gwinnett magazine.
Yes.
Yeah, we have 2 of them.
Yes.
They're monthly, you know, print, digital, online. So, and what we focus on and always have, I mean, you will never see in the magazines anything that's divisive. You're going to see encouraging things. You're going to see nonprofits. You're going to see churches. You're going to see principal profiles. But I'm like, if you want to go read that stuff, I promise you, there's a ton of places to find it almost anywhere.
Yes.
So now more than ever, there were magazines and other things that just shut down during the thing. And I said, you know, if we're going to be a leader in the community, we've got now more than ever to be positive and to and encourage people.
Yes.
And
I agree.
yeah, I feel blessed. I mean, a lot of people tell my wife, she's a teacher, they love my column each month. I'm like, what did I even say? You know, but I try to put that to people, because people do need that uplifting word.
Yeah.
In particular, you know, during this craziness of 2020, it's been, but that's what we've always been about, and we've just doubled down on that to even make it. you know,
Oh, that's
important.
awesome.
I know you write books because I have one here. Everyone is in sales.
That was my first foray into writing a book.
I love it. I love that, though, because you're saying from the ball field to the boardroom, everyone is in sales. But now you also have would you buy from me?
Yeah, you're back to me.
Oh, yeah. But you have another,
I haven't even announced it to the public yet. And but
Can we
we'll
announce
tell
it now?
Yeah,
Like this?
we can say what it is, because I'm not going to. What I did before when I did my first 2 books is I talked about it for about a year, and other people go, "That's a good idea." But basically, I see what I'm going to call it over-communicate to avoid misunderstandings. And what I see in text and emails and social media and all the stuff I do, people either under-respond, they say, there's 3 questions you ask them and they say yes. Yes to which one?
Yeah.
They it gets confusing trying to follow these communications. People email you and you email them, they text you back, or they Facebook message you. And I'm like, what? So the whole idea is, if we can have clear, concise communications through all our channels, then we're going to have, in other words, there's times when you need to pick up the phone and call someone versus email them.
Right.
And we all know that, but I'm going to go really deep in and talk about the human connection and the human-to-human part of that. And that's the goal. But right now, that I don't have the extra hours to pull that up yet, but it's there.
But I think that's a really a subject that we really need to focus on. We are inundated with so much information that sometimes it just becomes you're overloaded and you don't know how to communicate back, even though it could be simple, like what you just said. Instead of are you having a conversation on Messenger and then Insta DM, and then I will tell you, I can't keep up with it all, and I am slowly going into emerging back into the communication of society, because I tried to send an email, I will tell you, to this person, and it was supposed to be very professional. I called, it was all wrong, autocorrect, and I was like, oh dear Lord, I'm so sorry. I was like, I can't, let me just,
It was all wrong.
My co-host and I were on our Marketing Matters radio show, so we took a few months off, being in the studio. We get back in, and we had 2 guests at the same time, and we were like, and she was like, we're not used to talking to people. I'm sorry, audience. We've been stuck on an island, and you're now seeing, it's like you guys,
Well, this is the first time Sherry and I have seen, since January.
4 months.
4 months.
Okay.
So I was looking at Sherry, I'm like,
hey, you're not on a computer screen.
And it was so different being back here after so many months.
Yeah,
wasn't it though?
It's very
You have to get back into the way of thinking.
You do. I mean, when you got people saying, you guys know this, but you got 5 minutes left, you got this and that, and you're trying, and you got somebody talking, but we had to get back into a rhythm as well.
Right.
And that's, we go in studio to bring in guests, which we love to invite a guest for you guys to come in. But it did take a little bit of a rhythm. The first one, I was like, what show am I doing? Because I've been doing these other ones, and I'm going to remember what I'm doing. Right.
Well, I love that you're highlighting the heroes around our community, because there's so much negative news, and there's so much a narrative of fear that is not of God. And we have to, I'm not talking about sugarcoating things. No, it's okay to talk about these hard subjects, but it's not okay to cause fear and panic and hysteria.
Right.
So I'm grateful. First of all, please tell your wife, thank you for her. She's a heroine for the education community. But I see this right here, for example, you did an up close with Creekside Dentistry.
Yeah, and we're trying to show the story behind the story, right? There are dentistry offices doing great things in the community. All these things they sponsor and give back. But, you go, well, they're just a dentist. No, there's so much more there.
Than that.
And we don't want to go, yes, they do great work on teeth or, whatever. But we're trying to take these people, or Agavera Mexican restaurant, but they do so much and to make lives better, and those stories aren't told.
Yes.
And if they are, they're kind of glossed over because they want to get to more sensational news. Now more than ever.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm gonna do everything in my human, God-given ability to get these stories out through as many mediums as,
Thank you.
And
people are like, man, we just felt good to be able to say that. And I just said, well, I feel good playing a little smart and connecting people, know, and that is what I try to do, and
you do it very well. But I want to ask you a question in your book. Would you buy from you? You've got in here a chapter called Under the Iceberg Mindset. Yeah. What do you mean by that, Ryan?
So in the second section of the book, you go to an Under the Iceberg Mindset. And, like in my doctorate, I'm coming to the end of my coursework in leadership. You start looking at, most people look at what's in house, surface level questions. They don't think, especially now, what's really going on. Somebody says, I'm doing, how are you doing, Sandra, Sherry? And they're like, great. But you can tell you're not doing great. And they're like, okay, super. And you walk down the hall and they're like, oh, I actually wanted to talk. So it's thinking at the deepest level, the why level, why people do what they do. What's What's going on with them? Are we really taking time to listen to them? Or are we just saying, oh, okay, hope you're great, and going into what we want to talk about?
Right.
So it's a whole deep level of thinking so that we can truly understand the other person, because we're never going to be able to communicate. This is a follow-up my first book. Sailing is communicating, is how I defined it. We can't communicate anything if people aren't listening and fully engaged.
Yes.
We have to fully engage with them first.
Yes.
You know?
Is that why you said in here also stop and think?
Yeah, I mean, well.
Really?
What, did I say that?
Yeah, you did. Stop and think.
Yeah, well, I must have said that. I get asked that. Yeah, I think the book probably says it. But yeah, you know, I've had every book's expounded, and every time you do something, you get better. I got my first one in with Everyone's in Sales. If I was doing it now, I'd probably done a few things differently, and then I did better with the second one. The third one would. It's just you learn as you go along.
Oh,
you know, and you learn how many editors and writers and things and stories and research. But yeah, I'm committed to doing a third one, but you know, it's about a year's time.
Yeah, and I think it's important because it is. Once you really stop and you think and then you listen, then that way you really are understanding where people are.
Where
this whole upshift of what's happening, people are coming out totally different. And you just don't know. Even though there's this little quote that says, we're in it together.
Yeah.
I keep hearing, we're in this together.
Right.
And I get it that we're in this together. I really do. And I want to smile when I say that.
I don't.
But this is what I think. We're in this together, but we're all experiencing it differently.
Differently.
So you can't mandate, you can't say, because we're in this together, we're feeling it. No, you're feeling it different. I'm feeling it different.
You're seeing it entirely different than me.
So, and I say that not to cause dissension, but it's just like we've got to really remember that even though we are experiencing this together,
every emotion's going to be
different.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so I channeled that into some other things, but when I take time, which we all do, to reflect and pray and go, I'm not even sure yet I've come to the realization of exactly how I feel. You know, I've stayed busy on things and I've reflected on things. But to say we all feel the same way,
no, we don't. And that's the whole point. And we need to figure out with the communication that sometimes when you send out an email, the heart is not there, and the response to an email can really baffle that person, going, "Oh my goodness, I had no idea that was offensive," or how did I?
Well, it comes across not the way you meant it. You know, people take, like when I'm speaking with you, you hear my tone, my voice. People read in a tone in an email like, you said, you shouldn't have said that. Well, I didn't even mean that in a bad way.
And sometimes instead of stopping to listen, maybe we just need to stop and not type.
Not talk,
I had somebody yesterday.
Just keep going.
The answer was to save time. We were going to text and email. And I knew this would not, we weren't on the same page what we were doing. I said, we need to just have a brief phone call. Well, can you give me a prelude? And I was like, I can't. It's too there were like 4 parts to it. And yes, it took a little longer on the phone, but ultimately, I'm old enough now to realize you can waste way more time with sending that wrong tone email. Because people are like, Ryan, you're usually encouraging. This really made me sad. And I'm like, I didn't mean it. But and then I realized I go spend more time fixing it than it would have in the first place of, you know, so we got to use the tools properly. And, you know, you don't use all the tools in the same way. No more than you use a hammer to fix everything.
Well, you've got many tools, I have to say, because I'm sitting here looking at a veritable plethora of all that you do. I'm wondering, when do you sleep?
Yes, when do you rest?
I tell you, I really have. I have rested during this time. I have worked back on exercise again. I have my family time. But I just believe, you know, God has given me talents, and especially the one about those who teach. I feel strongly when you have platforms to reach people and make a difference in lives, I want to do it to the best of my ability. I don't want to leave anything short when they go, you know, I could have done a little more. So I enjoy it. It's not like it's a job. I love what I do.
It's a purpose that God has given you. Now, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Probably my main website, because you can go either ryansowers.com, my name, or you can go to Ourtown, OURTOWN, Gwinnett.com, and all that stuff's housed there, and there's some overlay between the two, but you know, but somebody told me the other day, one of my shows, I'm Googleable, so you get.
I know, at this point, it's like, just Google.
Kids don't even really know what I do for a living. They're like, my dad just talks a lot and writes a lot, and I'm like, I have 3 daughters. I'm like, well, I get, you know, it's so that's what I do. I talk a lot.
You have 3 daughters?
I do.
So do I.
Yeah, I know. I tell you, I love my daughters and my wife dearly. We've been married almost 24 years, but I tell you, one of them's always mad at me. And I'm like, it's always somebody. And then the tears come.
Oh my goodness, I love it.
It's estrogen.
It is. Well, I kept telling my husband, we only have one, but he would come in and he would open up the door, and I was like, just approach with caution. We've hit every emotion, and we're going to be okay. But listen, we're going to be coming back with Ryan, so just take a little break, maybe if you're having some emotional thing, and then come back and join us because we have more with Ryan.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to Friends and Neighbors, and we're just having a wonderful time with Ryan and just his wonderful communication information.
And I want to read this from his book, Everyone's in Sales. Whether you're a parent convincing your kids to clean up their room or take out the trash, a mom on a fundraising committee for your local PTA, work for yourself to bring in new clients, work for a company and need to push a new business initiative through, or secure the next high-paying job, you are in sales.
That's right.
Woo! You got to sell it.
And you know, I tell the guys that when I have to experience the traditional car salesman, I'm like, please just stop. Don't even go there with me. I'm going to hand you the book. Just read them yourself. Don't even stop. Please leave me alone. Let's move along because I'm getting very, very angry. And those emotions play silent. My wife just sees my face and I'm like, everything I can't stand is if it's not authentic and genuine. So,
well, Ryan, it has been a wonderful time having you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
My pleasure. I really appreciate
you got to come back and be with us. Bring that next book.
I'll try.
Hey, we look forward to being on your podcast.
Absolutely. We're going to bring you in. Yep, absolutely. We're looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you.
And we're glad they were here.
Yes, we are happy.
Always glad. Yes.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on
God
Friends and Neighbors.
bless. Amen.